So every month, Real Broker sends out a survey to all the agents within the company in order to get a deeper understanding what's actually going on in the real estate market and what buyers and sellers are prioritizing. They just released the most recent data from these surveys and it shows some really big changes in the real estate market happening right now. Let's dive in. So the first question here is, what are agents seeking and what clients value in a real estate market right now? So let's go into this first question. As an agent, what were the top 3 factors that most influenced your decision to join your current brokerage? And so the number one factor to real estate agents when joining a brokerage is economics. Essentially, how much they're paying to that company, how much money they actually get to keep. And let's be honest, there are a lot of predatory brokerages out there that are charging way too much and providing way too little value to the real estate agents. So I'm really not surprised that economics is actually the number one determining factor. Now, the second one is going to be company culture and value. Honestly, this is really important to me. What is the values of the company and the culture of that company and the community? I've worked at other brokerages where I really, not brokerages, but individual offices where I really didn't connect with the values, with the community, with the culture at these offices. And so for me, I personally really loved working at a company where one of the core values talks about being kind. That's really important to me. In my life, I want to have a business that I think resonates with who I am and my own personal core values. So I think that's really valuable to me as well. The next one here is going to be technology and tools. Absolutely, especially in 2025, having a real estate brokerage that is very tech focused, I think is essential today for you to be a competitive real estate agent. And so these are the top 3: economics, company, culture and values, and then the technology. A close fourth is going to be freedom and flexibility. I like that, especially when it comes to marketing and branding. You want that flexibility to market your business however you want to market it. Equity, ownership, opportunity, 28%. That's really interesting. So we definitely have that here at Real. Leadership, management, referral or recommendations from trusted sources, training, and professional development. That's really interesting, how low this is on this scale. So this is only 17% of agents put this down, that training is really important to them. I would have expected that to be a lot higher. And then the last one's brand reputation. Apparently that's not very important to real estate agents. So let's move over to the consumer side and what consumers are valuing. In your experience, what are the main reasons clients choose to work with you? So as a real estate agent. And personal relationships, 89% of agents said personal relationships. And this is definitely in line with my understanding as well, my own personal experience, that consumers want to build relationships with you. And most consumers, they know a real estate agent. I think there's over 2 million active real estate agents in America. Most people know a real estate agent. I'd also say this is the value of doing video right here as well, is that it allows you to build relationships with people before you ever even meet them. So agents here are saying that personal relationships are the number one reason why clients are using them. And I definitely believe that's also why having and maintaining your database is so important as well. And many experienced real estate agents, their database is their entire source of new leads coming into their businesses. So number 2 is going to be responsiveness and communication. Yes, absolutely. If a consumer texts you, you don't text them back for a day or two, that definitely is not going to help out your business. They say speed to lead is incredibly important, and this kind of shows that as well, that 60% of agents put responsiveness to communication. Professional reputation is 54%. That's really interesting. So I wonder if this is kind of in line with your reviews online and what people are saying about you, obviously, but probably reviews is really what this kind of comes down to. So the top 3 are going to be personal relationship, responsiveness, and communication, then your professional reputation. Then the other ones are going to be local market expertise, okay? Negotiation skills, wow. So negotiation skills are not as important to consumers as your reputation, essentially your reviews, and not as important as your local expertise in the local real estate market. Social media presence is 18%. Well, the interesting thing about this is your social media presence helps you build personal relationships with your database and stay in front of them. And it also helps with your professional reputation in a lot of ways as well. Online reviews and presence, okay, that's only 13%. Brokerage brand affiliation, I love this. So brokerage brand affiliation is only 2%. Only 2% of people said that this is what the determining factor is for consumers to pick a real estate agent. It's really interesting because I was with Keller Williams for 5 years, very expensive company to work for, and they would tell us that their brand is going to get us more clients, that consumers associate their brand with trustworthiness and loyalty and professionalism, and just being part of Keller Williams is going to get us more clients. They used to tell us this, and Remax, Century 21, they all tell their agents the exact same thing. But when you really ask real estate agents, they say that only 2% of them say that this is a determining factor for consumers. All these other things is way more important to a consumer when choosing a real estate agent. All right, so the next question is regards to the balance of power between buyers and sellers in a real estate market. And Real asked their agents, is your market in a buyer market, a seller market, or a balanced market? For this one, I actually want to go back to the very first one and then compare that to the very current latest one. So January 2024, they were saying that 25% of agents said that they're in a buyer's market. Today, a year and a half later, 43% of agents are saying that they're in a buyer's market. So that is a very big shift right there, from 25% to 43%. A year and a half ago, 29% said they're in a balanced market. Today, 29% people say they're in a balanced market. 46% of agents said they're in a seller's market a year and a half ago. Today, it's only 28%. And so you can see a very clear trend here with more and more agents every single month reporting that they're in a buyer's market. And so I think we can officially call it that we've officially shifted into a buyer's market here in the United States. So it's 43% say that they're in a buyer's market versus 28% saying that they're in a seller's market. Now, obviously, there's these little pockets and little niches all across the country, and that's why you're getting these different reportings. But from a macro perspective, 43% of America is in a buyer's market right now. And that's pretty relevant because the strategies that you're using with your clients also have to change when you shift from a seller's market to a buyer's market. So now you're probably not going to be in as many multiple offer situations. You may not have to skip home inspections anymore or have an appraisal guarantee anymore like you probably did a year and a half ago. So this really does shift our strategies that we're using to get our clients in the best house for them right now. So the shift from the buyer market to a seller market really does mean that the strategies that we use with our clients also have to change and adapt to our current market. And one last thing I want to point out is just kind of this big jump from April to May right here. So in April, they were saying 34% said that they're in a buyer's market, very similar to the previous months as well. So a big change from April to May right here, from 34% to 43% now reporting being in a buyer's market. So really just in May, June, this time frame, the last month and a half, we've seen a big change, more and more people reporting being in a buyer's real estate market. So now let's look at the biggest challenges that home buyers are facing in the current real estate market according to the real estate agents. And so the options that they're giving is mortgage rates, inventory, economic uncertainty, buyer compensation, or other. Let's start off with mortgage rates. So a year and a half ago, January 2024, 50% of agents were saying that mortgage rates were the biggest challenge that real estate agents are facing. Today, it's still 50%. I was actually kind of surprised by that. But yeah, the interest rates really haven't moved very much in the last year and a half, 2 years. They shot all the way up and they fluctuate a little bit, but they're still incredibly high. So still half the consumers out there, the interest rates are kind of a limiting factor of what's keeping them out of the real estate market. The next one is going to be the light blue, which is going to be inventory. A year and a half ago, 39% of agents said that the lack of inventory is the biggest challenge that their buyers are facing in their real estate markets. Today, that number is down to 14. That is the lowest this number has been in the last year and a half, according to the survey data. So only 14% of buyers are saying that it's a lack of inventory that's keeping them from buying a house. That is huge because the lack of inventory was a gigantic problem for us, a year and a half, 2 years ago. So that's actually fantastic that somehow we've gotten more inventory into the market and is not as much of a concern for most buyers. And the next one is going to be economic uncertainty. A year and a half ago, only 5% of agents reported this being as a major factor as to why their clients are not finding the houses that they need. Today, that is at 28%. That is an all-time high. Again, according to this survey, the last year and a half, we got from 5% concerned about economic uncertainty to 28%. So a quarter of the buyers out there are concerned about economic uncertainty. And politics aside for a second, there is just a lot of talk about tariffs on our imports into the country and also our exports. And even though somebody like me watches this stuff pretty closely, I could not tell you 12 months from now what imports are going to have tariffs and how much, and what exports are going to have tariffs and how much. Definitely not 24 or 36 months from now. Like, there's very few people who could accurately predict what different sectors are going to have tariffs on them. And tariffs do raise the prices of consumer goods. According to this data, 28% of buyers out there are just concerned about the future and what's going to happen to the economy, to inflation, and the cost of their everyday goods and services. And the final one is buyers' compensation. And you see only 5% of buyers are really concerned about buyers' compensation. And I love seeing this with the whole NAR settlement. This was something that a lot of people were really concerned about, is that the buyers would not want to pay a buyer agent. But I've seen other data showing that I think the average buyer commission has only dropped by 0.1%, actually 0.01%. I think it went from 2.5% to 2.4% is the average buyer agent commission in America. And that number has actually been trending down the last decade anyway. So the NAR settlement really did not have much of an impact on the average buyer agent commission. And this also kind of reflects that not a whole lot of buyers are really concerned about that. And if we look at the all-time high of this, it got up to 8% in July 2024, so about 12 months ago. And yeah, just sitting at 5%. So the buyer agent commission is really not a major factor for buyers in today's market. And real quick, I want to let you know that every single week I send out an email full of free training in the Real Academy. We have multiple live streams and masterminds going on every single week, and I go through and hand select what I think are the 5 most interesting classes or masterminds or live streams going on that week, and I send it out to my email list. If you guys are interested in getting this email, I'll have a link down in the description below, or you can head on over to my website, next-genagents.com. And I'd love to hear your answers to some of these survey questions as well. Comment down below with whether your market is in a buyer's market, a seller's market, or a balanced market.